hacen patria por el pop británico.
They're catchy, they're cute, they get into trouble. They're everything we want in a girls group.
Destruyeron el rumor de que tendrían éxito una sola vez.
Girls Aloud are at the vanguard of modern pop music.
Tienen la mejor máquina mediática.
What's worked for Girls Aloud is very shrewd management.
There's been an awful lot of money put behind them to keep them at the top.
Pero más allá de todo eso, son 5 chicas.
It's their sheer ordinariness that endears them to us.
¿Cuánto puede durar el juego? Girls Aloud quedan expuestas. Surgieron de la TV y estaban decididas a no soltar la fama.
Of all the groups that ever came out of these kind of shows, they're the only one that've had a really long, sustained career. They're kind of the freaks of the whole kind of reality pop kind of world.
But they're great sellers for us. All the mags love Girls Aloud. You know, any film set we get, we're on it like a shot.
Al crecer bajo las luces, tuvieron que lidiar con la prensa sensacionalista, los elogios, la aversión y hasta críticas por su trabajo.
Bad behaviour sells papers, sells magazines, and is going to get them lots of publicity, not the publicity they want.
The turning point for them was having reputable music columnists actually say that their music was brilliant rather than just dismissing them as a girl band.
Pero más allá de la prensa, las chicas vieron que la exposición las mantuvo en la vanguardia de los británicos famosos y les aseguró que su marca trascendiera mucho más allá de su música.
If you are going to have long-lasting success, you have to be inescapable. Every time you walk into a supermarket, there's got to be a product there that you've endorsed, or every time you open a newspaper, there's an advertisement and your face appears on it. These are the kind of events that you have to involve yourself with.
Tras una sucesión de éxitos que duró 5 años, fueron adoradas y tuvieron fama de batir récords. ¿Pero estaba cumplido el sueño?
Once you've been in a group for 5 years, you're going to start growing in different directions. You're not going to be able to get away being Girls Aloud forever because you're going to be like middle-aged women allowed at some point. You've got to get some other kind of thing going on.
A través de una mirada exclusiva a sus vidas, este programa les ofrece un retrato único de estos 5 años de historia de la música y los titulares más estridentes generados por Girls Aloud. Fueron reconocidas por mantener vivo el pop británico, pero desde su formación en 2002, Girls Aloud estuvo plagado de especulaciones diversas.
Anytime there's a big pop band, huge pop band like Girls Aloud, the biggest story is going to be when they split. Why they split, who causes the split. That's inevitable since the first #1 hit single they get.
The quickest way to annoy them during an interview is to ask them whether they're splitting up, and then you get huffy kind of, everyone's always asking us that, everyone's always asking us that. And I think, well, okay, yeah, if everyone's always asking you that, why haven't you 5 got together and come up with a credible answer to it?
Continuamente demostrando que la prensa se equivocaba, la banda negó ferozmente rumores de peleas. Pero 2007 fue el año de las especulaciones y esta vez fue Nadine quien alimentó el fuego con 3 jugadas reveladoras. Los medios no podían creer su suerte cuando la vieron del brazo de Jesse Metcalfe, el chico de Hollywood. Pero a pesar de la relación tumultuosa, en 2007 Nadine probó el estilo de vida de Los Ángeles y le gustó lo que vio.
When Nadine Coyle was dating Jesse Metcalfe, she really had an opportunity, which I think she capitalized on as much as possible, to establish herself as a star in her own right, apart from the other girls. I think that was a big boon to her career.
The more Nadine fell in love with Jesse, the more she was over in LA at these big Hollywood premieres, and you just thought, my God, she's actually become, A-list. Look what's happened to her.
She's moved out to LA. She moved the whole of her family out to Los Angeles as well, and they've set up a business there. They've opened a bar and they want to expand their business. If you look at that in keeping with her on-off relationship with Jesse Metcalfe, she does seem to be carving a whole new niche and a whole new life for herself, and it doesn't involve this country and it doesn't involve Girls Aloud.
El alejamiento físico de las raíces de Girls Aloud fue la primera señal. Pero la prensa también aprovechó su nuevo estilo de vida para sugerir que su carrera también tomaba otra dirección.
Once you've got a Hollywood boyfriend, you're going to start being introduced to other people and get into the Hollywood world. She's got a Hollywood agent working for her now.
Nadine definitely has the most Hollywood look about her. She's the most glamorous, probably the most polished. She's the one who all along people have been saying she's the one who could go solo and actually be quite a classy act. You know, she could move away from pop and be something a bit more mature than that.
Pero lo más notable, se gestaron rumores de que se apartaría del último show en TV porque no está de acuerdo con la premisa de los realities. Estos generaron sorpresa y dejaron la impresión de que Nadine se despedía de sus raíces.
They are doing this programme for ITV. It's completely farcical for Nadine Coyle to claim that she's not into reality television shows. It's like, love, you know, remember where you were from. I mean, this girl was founded from a pop star reality TV show.
Just because she came from a reality show, it doesn't mean she therefore has to continue to do reality shows for the rest of her career, and if not, she's a hypocrite. If that was the case, I'd still be doing a milk round in Hammersmith. And I tell you, I'm not going back to that job for no one.
Mientras Nadine estudia sus posibilidades en Estados Unidos y con los rumores de que su relación con Jesse Metcalfe sigue firme, ¿cómo haría la chica para borrar el chisme?
The fact that the new album doesn't have huge amounts of artwork of all the girls together has also been used as speculation, as this is the record label using this as a safety net in case one of them does leave. It wouldn't affect the album's future too much. In a way, this could become a self-fulfilling prophecy in itself.
Girls Aloud will last as long as they can last. I think once one leaves, I think that'll be the beginning of the end for them.
Y si el sueño se acerca al final, Girls Aloud jugó lo suficiente para asegurarse un futuro más allá de la música. A continuación, la sorpresa de una ausencia.
It just seemed like through the weeks Javine had it sewn up. It was a massive shock. We're watching and all the audience went.
Y como el sueño casi se termina antes de empezar.
I think that incident could have potentially ruined the band, and I think that Cheryl is more aware than anyone else just how damaging it was.
Sus papeles en la película Saint Trinians de 2007 fueron los últimos ejemplos de la ingeniosa marca Girls Aloud en funcionamiento.
There'd been a lot of pre-publicity about St. Trinians over the months, ever since it was announced. And really the big shout was that Girls Aloud will be in the film. They're in it right at the end, literally over the end credits. And you just think, wow, was that all that fuss 6 months previously about Girls Aloud being in St. Trinians? Is that the final result? Is that all we're getting? It's all part of a package, really. It's all part of a big marketing strategy.
Por fin, más de 5 años después de su formación, salieron del marco de los realities y la TV. La longevidad de Girls Aloud sacudió a sus críticos que decían que la gente se cansaría de los shows de talentos.
There's a point when Pop Star The Rivals came out that there'd been an overdose of those kind of reality shows.
Hearsay had already bombed, and we haven't really started the whole Pop Idol X Factor phenomena yet. And the format was looking a little tired, and that whole Hearsay saga did end in tears in a very big way.
Our appetite has just about been satiated by these kind of quest programs. And the time has come when we, the audience, the fans, the consumers, we're going to resist and just say no. We will decide who we want to like.
Pero en lugar de marcar el final, Popstars The Rivals resultó el trampolín perfecto para 5 chicas ambiciosas y la primera prueba de cómo funciona la manipulación mediática.
Popstars The Rivals really will go down in reality TV history as being the only show that really did produce a long-standing band that really did well.
People, you know, slag off reality shows a lot and say, oh, you know, reality bands, you know, they're ruining music. But occasionally, when you get a band like Girls Aloud, you realise that there are advantages to bands being cultivated in that manner. We know and we saw exactly how Girls Aloud were put together. And what we know about them is that they went through a very lengthy and arduous process.
El público se obsesionó con las secuencias detrás del escenario y los debates acerca del género y la edad.
When we all did Popstars Rivals, I mean, the process is pretty much the same as X Factor is. Everyone auditioning in different cities. We were all brought to like a boot camp type thing. And then we were divided into 2 groups of boys and girls, eventually whittled down to 10 of each.
Girls versus boys on TV is always going to be a winner, really, because, you can automatically fall into which camp you want to vote for. There was quite a bit of excitement about who would come out on top in the run-up to Christmas and get that coveted #1 slot.
We had felt that we knew the contestants. We'd watch them mature, we'd watch them rehearse, we'd watch them having arguments with each other. It was if we knew them, we knew their weaknesses as well as their strengths. I think that's very important.
Y los jueces hicieron todo tipo de payasadas delante y detrás de las cámaras para hacerse notar.
There was some rivalry between us. I have to say, the reason for the rivalry was more or less fueled and sparked by the feud between Louis and Pete.
You do kind of want there to be arguments amongst the judges. That does add to the sort of flavour of the programme. And you'll have your favourite judge, and then obviously the judges will pick out their favourites, and that does kind of sway your thinking, I think, to whoever ends up winning it.
If you took away all the kind of arguments and rivalries that the judges have had on these shows, you wouldn't necessarily have the same winners.
And Pete would talk to us and get us all wound up saying, Louis said this about you, and the girls have said this, and blah, blah, blah. And then Louis would say to the girls, the boys have said this about you, and Pete said this. We'd walk past each other in the studio, and there'd be like a frosty silence, and looks like that. The TV people and the production and the management wanted there to be some rivalry there, because that was what the whole concept of the show was. But it didn't happen naturally.
Pero fue una casualidad que las 5 chicas que ganaron parecían ser ambiciosas y muy personales. La decisión final estuvo en manos del público, pero hubo una dosis de influencia que indujo al público a su elección.
I don't think anybody can go into believing that just anybody's going to win. They've got a fairly good idea of what they're looking for and who they want.
Without question, the right 5 girls were picked for Girls Aloud. I think if any single one of them had been anyone different, the outcome and how things have turned out for them now would be completely different.
There must have been a whole mechanism in place, because it's so obvious now when we look at the girls that these are the ones who ought to have been in the band from the very beginning.
No obstante, cuando millones de televidentes vieron la final para saber quién formaba el grupo, parecía que una participante iba a triunfar y su derrota generó una sorpresa.
I can recall the show where Javine didn't get picked and Sarah got picked in front of Javine, and it was a massive shock. We were watching and all the audience went, it just seemed like through the weeks Javine had it sewn up. But I think now, looking at it, Sarah was probably the right choice, because Javine really wanted to pursue the solo career.
Javine was always a very outspoken personality within the whole dynamic of the show. I don't know if she would have gelled with the others as much as they did together, whether she would have been too much of an individual force, whether she would have been too strong for them.
When you used to watch the Spice Girls, there'd always be, elbows and a leg out. And I mean, even now with the Spice Girls, you've got, oh, look, it's the Spice Girls. And then you've got Posh on the end doing her own Vogue pose. And there are none of those visual power struggles going on. They all seem to know their place. I've not seen anybody in photographs trying to outdo anybody else.
Con 5 victorias personales, la irlandesa Nadine Coyle, Geordie Lass Cheryl Tweedy, la belleza norteña Kimberly Walsh, la pelirroja Nicola Roberts y la bomba rubia Sarah Hardy, se formó Girls Aloud.
They all had interesting lives. They were all from reasonably ordinary backgrounds. Most of them are from up north, and they've got that kind of down-to-earth persona that a lot of northern girls have.
Pero la batalla navideña por el primer puesto las instó a lograr otro objetivo: ganarse una audiencia predominantemente femenina.
When it was 10 of each, everyone thought the guys were going to win, because I think as 10 individuals, it was far stronger.
Throughout the show, the boys were kind of the favourites, I guess, and the public and the media were expecting us to get the #1.
Girls Aloud really turned the way voting on these kind of shows works. They turned it around on their head, because usually girls vote for boys, and it's girls who are watching the show, so everyone assumed that they would go for the cute boy band.
Because there was such high expectation for the boys, the media just jumped on it, as quite rightly they should. It's a story. They had an awesome anthem songs, and Sound of the Underground was the first single, and it slammed you in the face, and it was just bang, this is something different, something new. We had a Bee Gees cover, and we had to make the best of it, and it was quite difficult.
One True Voice, anyone remember them? You know, Bomb Without a Trace. Girls Aloud could have gone the same way, but were very cleverly managed by Louis Walsh. Managed to eke out a career in pop and have managed to sustain it really cleverly.
It just seemed, we were like looking at each other going, there's something, they know something that we don't know. And then we heard Sound of the Underground on the radio, and we just thought, I see, that's how it's going to be. And we just thought, well, it's a done deal.
La victoria fue de las chicas. Ahora que su relación con Polydor estaba asegurada, el futuro de Girls Aloud parecía firme. Pero tendrían que trabajar duro para evitar el destino de Hearsay, sus antecesoras.
There is no rocket science when it's to do with girl bands. All those girls, whether it be Spice Girls or Girls Aloud or Sugar Babes or whoever, they're all desperate for fame. Anyone that wants to go into a boy or girl band is desperate for fame. It's as simple as that.
The most ambitious was definitely, without question, Sarah. You could see in the auditions, I mean, she wasn't the best singer, in my opinion, but she was definitely the most determined. She was the one you noticed straight away.
It is funny looking back, you try and picture the faces when it was 200 girls. They do stand out, and you remember now those are the ones that are going to make a difference, whether it be their voices or their dancing or just the way they carry themselves as people.
All of them realised that if they had a big opportunity, and if they didn't make it work, they would probably be up maybe stacking shelves in Tesco in Bradford or wherever it is each of them come from, you know, if they didn't take this opportunity with both hands.
Pero las chicas no eran las únicas ambiciosas. Louis Walsh y los jefes de Polydor sabían muy bien que tenían una mina de oro y a 5 principiantes que querían llegar lejos.
Popstars, the rivals, is where Girls Aloud came from. And the only reason they had success was because they had no rivals. It's as simple as that, really.
They were in the right place at the right time. There was a massive void left by the Spice Girls splitting up. The UK public were ready for another girl group.
Girls Aloud should be eternally grateful for the management they had right at the very beginning, because it was that management, it was that team that looked at these girls and said, how are we going to turn them from the products of a reality television show to credible pop stars in their own right?
Management teams behind bands like Girls Aloud do like to keep them on quite a tight leash if they can. They are quite restricted by the people around them with what they can and can't say and what interviews they do.
I mean, they're not trying to create a pop band that only has one hit and disappears like Hearsay. They're trying to create a pop band that really works. In fact, if you look at Girls Aloud, they actually are very well moulded. They look like a band. They kind of fit together very well.
The brilliant formula that Girls Aloud have got is that they've got this really quite out there music, but they look like 5 ordinary girls, you know, that you might see down at All Bar One having a happy hour on a Friday night.
Every member looks as if she could really shop in Topshop and get their makeup from Boots, do the things that anybody in the street, well, females of course, can buy. And I think that was the message that they really conveyed to their audience, that we're just ordinary, look at us, but we look fabulous on stage and you can do it as well.
From an outsider's point of view, the PR strategy of the girls is actually quite hard to define, and it feels and looks pretty unstructured. I think the reality of it is that it's very well oiled, it's very well manufactured. If you look at the girls, they're very powerful as a 5, and each one of them is not bigger than the actual group as a whole, which is very different if you look at their kind of predecessors.
Pero aún con el mejor respaldo, lo mejor de la producción y la falta de competencia, en los primeros días de 2003, la banda mostró que tenía deslices, cuando una de sus chicas se vio embrollada en un escándalo.
Just as Girls Aloud were becoming this huge phenomenon and nothing seemed to be going wrong, Cheryl had a bit of an incident in a nightclub where she allegedly attacked a toilet attendant. And of course, this went on. She was charged. She had to go to trial in the end. And the whole thing looked like the Girls Aloud phenomenon was about to collapse, really, before they had got off their feet.
I think that incident could have potentially ruined the band. And I think that Cheryl is more aware than anyone else just how damaging it was. I mean, in the end, the judge ruled that it wasn't racially motivated, but it was still a very spiteful attack.
They made her look very chav and kind of nasty and maybe a little angry and trashy. I mean, it certainly didn't help her image, and it certainly didn't help the image of the band.
That was the really big turning point for the band when they really had to pull ranks with each other, because there was no denying what would happen.
I think without some serious savvy PR, there's no doubt that that story really should have split Girls Aloud up and been the end of their careers.
Con apenas pocos meses de fama en su historia, Girls Aloud parecía una gran crisis publicitaria que sus representantes no habían podido evitar. El grupo más cuidado de Inglaterra había dado que hablar a la prensa.
The trouble is that they were so squeaky clean. There was, shock horror. I think the Girls Aloud need more of that kind of press.
This was the time that made Girls Aloud newsworthy for a whole bunch more reasons than the fact that they just won this reality TV show.
Everybody loves kind of bad news. You love to kind of read about people who've fallen from grace, and you know, whether that's right or wrong, that's kind of just the way it happens sometimes.
Y para empeorar las cosas, la prensa siguió divulgando controversias acerca de su debut y rumores de que su primera gira no convocaría a nadie.
Soon after that, it was uncovered that a song which we'd been told was an original wasn't actually an original, and then a tour was announced and the press started reporting that the ticket sales were low, and it seemed as if things were careering slightly out of control for Girls Aloud.
La prensa tuvo el poder de arruinarlas en una etapa muy temprana de su carrera, pero sorprendentemente eligió no hacerlo.
At the time, we were all thinking, wow, how are they going to recover from this? But I think history tells us, and present day tells us, that they got over it quite well.
I think they got around it by a bit of a charm offensive. And she's also only 1 out of 5 in the group. It's not fair to the rest of the group because one of them got a bit drunk one night and had a bit of a bust up in the toilets of a club.
The people liked them, you know, people were buying their records, and it just seemed like it was a bandwagon that the press just had to get on because their readers really liked these girls, and they were prepared to forgive Cheryl and the whole nightclub assistant story, and they were prepared to move on. So the newspapers had to reflect that.
They seem to have managed to escape any major incident, and I think a large part of that is because there are no pretenders to their crown, and the media want to carry on writing about them and want to keep on liking them.
Fue una dura advertencia para las famosas 5, pero cuando la situación se complicó, su máquina mediática puso en acción un plan para salvarlas.
They're lucky.
Demostraron que valían la pena más allá del reino de los realities, pero en 2004, Girls Aloud alimentó otra vez a la prensa sensacionalista. Tras el muy publicitado roce con la justicia de Cheryl Tweedy, se recuperaron del escándalo, pero solo hasta ahí.
The media really controlled them at this time and gave the public, you know, a drip feed information about the girls, while at the same time not allowing them to be overexposed.
The PR machine was extremely quick to kick in. We saw the management make Girls Aloud do kids events, family-orientated events. They did the Children in Need single.
The reaction to this was that it made the public and the press want more. The fact that these girls weren't that accessible and suddenly weren't the TV stars that, you know, everybody had been interviewing and everybody had been seeing, it did make them much more wanted and much more desirable.
Pero tras el perdón de la prensa, fueron conscientes de que esta, con su intervención, podía llevarlas al éxito o a la ruina.
Girls Aloud are pretty coquettish with the press. They play up to their dark side when it comes to meeting male journalists. They will totally play up to the vampish sex kitten side. It wasn't always the case at the beginning of their career.
I remember interviewing Girls Aloud when they were discovered on Pop Stars Arrivals, and the change between then and now is just unbelievable. You know, they used to really resent the press and didn't really understand why they were pictured, or, you know, why a paparazzi guy would be hiding in a bush outside the house.
It's not a pleasant experience interviewing Girls Aloud. It's actually like being 12 years old again when you are the kind of slightly unpopular, awkward girl in the school and you're meeting like the Queen Bitch gang, actually.
They do walk along a very fine balance. They know that they need the press very much, and they are very accessible on one level, but on the other hand, they're cheeky enough to slightly turn 2 fingers up at them whenever they think it's necessary.
I think they like to show you where your place is, and your place is, well, down there. I can understand it if I was asking particularly hostile or insulting questions, but when you make a statement like, so girls, just, you know, let me tell you how great you are, and then you get 5 pairs of eyes looking at you like, Well, what do you mean by that? Well, hang on, in my head, that was coming out as a compliment.
Parecía que las 5 batalladoras tenían que acostumbrarse a su estatus. Cualesquiera fueran los motivos, tendrían que aprender a colaborar con la prensa si querían que la reputación del grupo se mantuviera intacta. Pero lo que les faltaba de tolerancia lo compensaban con astucia comercial. En 2005, el grupo tomó la decisión de dejar entrar en su vida a un nuevo representante, cuando, según Sarah, Louis Walsh parecía más preocupado por hacerse famoso.
So instead of just giving up and moaning about the fact that they didn't get the management they were promised whilst they were making the TV show, they literally took it upon themselves to more or less manage themselves. You know, they taught themselves the ins and outs of the music industry.
Entre tanto, ya fuera que les gustara o no, las Girls Aloud empezaban a aparecer con más frecuencia en los medios individualmente, y las fotos decían todo.
Cheryl was, I think it was at Funky Buddha Club. She was there in London after some after-show party for the awards ceremony. Met Ashley Cole there. Turned out he lived in the same block of flats as her in London, and then they just started dating.
She suddenly became a wag. You know, she was at the World Cup. She was a sort of Victoria Beckham Jr. version. It was brilliant. It was a sort of match made in tabloid heaven.
They're so tacky, those two, it's unbelievable. I mean, their photo shoots have been absolutely, it's chuckable stuff, you know. And I mean, when I say chuckable, I mean, let's be sick in the toilet 1,000 times over. Cheryl and Ashley. Ugh, the white Rolls Royce and the white suits.
She played that whole part very well. She allied herself very cleverly with Victoria Beckham. You know, this is the Girls Aloud that we love, this sort of strange postmodern feminist icons.
For a while, Girls Aloud propelled to serious uber A-list glamness, you know, red carpet.
Pero no todo fue glamour. La banda empezó a demostrar que bajo la apariencia brillante había un lado rebelde.
It's great. They've all been their individual personalities, the band, and they all give something different to the public, to their fans, and to the press too, because you can always depend on each of them to bring something a little bit different to photos.
I remember right at the beginning when the girls first launched, they must have met Busted at some party, and I think one of the girls had walked past one of the guys and Busted not said hello or banged into him without saying sorry or something like that, and he turned around in the press and he said that she was a rude ginger bitch, and she then the next night went out with a miniskirt and hot pants on with rude ginger bitch bothered or whatever on her backside, and I thought that was pretty cool. It showed a little bit of thought of how she was playing the media game.
Rude ginger bitch bothered, you know, written on the back of her skirt was obviously a so-called get back. That just tells everyone in the world, yes, she was extremely bothered about it. That's all that says.
There was that one incident, of course, where Kimberly was shot with what appeared to be a spliff in her hand. This was not nearly so dangerous as, of course, of Kate Moss snorting a line of cocaine in a recording studio, but it could have been, and it could have been very damaging for them.
Suddenly they were these naughty girls. They had a dark side. Funnily enough, it sort of worked in their favour. Rather like when Kate Moss hit the papers for her cocaine scandal, suddenly Girls Aloud were a force to be reckoned with, and they were growing up. They weren't so innocent after all, and that's when the offers of things like Lads Mag started flooding in.
Las payasadas no fueron importantes, pero Kimberly trasponía los límites y parecía curiosa por averiguar de cuántos aprietos podía salir.
The girls do wear short skirts, and when I first started working with them, I didn't know that the cameraman quite often just want to shoot up, get a kind of flash of the knickers. When the girls go out on their own, you know, the paparazzi out to get them, you know, to get that kind of, you know, bad shot of them. You know, they've learned the lessons from before that they should be well equipped in terms of underwear.
There was a time when she was packed coming out of a car, and you could see very clearly she was wearing these large control pants, Bridget Jones style knickers, and the next day she talked about the fact that, well, I'm just a normal girl, I have to watch my diet just like everyone else. She went on a lot of talk shows and talked about the fact that she was normal and down to earth. She liked a chip butty at the weekend.
Una vez más, si bien la cobertura de los medios no siempre era favorable, la apariencia normal que los representantes habían diseñado las protegía. Pero individualmente, Girls Aloud se estaban convirtiendo en un gran alimento de la prensa sensacionalista.
Sarah has the edge, and she's already been courted by the tabloids that make you serious money and who you need.
All bands need to have the naughty girl, the badly behaved girl, the party animal. Thank God she's the one out of Girls Aloud, and she does it really well.
A lot of celebrities, you'll see them at after parties, shunning the canapes, shunning the alcohol even. But Sarah is always walking around with a glass of something in her hand, having a good time.
Sarah Harding is one of the few young women who can get away with it. You know, you look at somebody like Charlotte Church or Britney Spears or Lindsay Lohan, and every time you see them stumbling out of a nightclub, it's like, you know, there they go again, the horrible, disgraceful, whatever. And Sarah Harding, they're like, doesn't she look great? You know, look at how cute she is, drunk.
The thing is about her, she's also very clever at playing up to her image of a party girl, and often lately there are photos of her which just look so staged, where she's clasping, you know, a big bottle of whiskey or a full magnum of champagne. There's no way, I don't care how much the girl parties, she's not drinking all that. It's just she's playing up to it.
Fuera de los testimonios que sugerían su estilo de vida alocado, la prensa hizo maravillas por el perfil de Sarah Harding. Pero por si había amenazas de una reacción violenta, el romance de Hollywood con Nadine fue oportuno para robarle el primer plano.
Jesse Metcalfe is, of course, this American hunk. He's been on Desperate Housewives, the biggest TV show out there at the time, especially. And he was this huge TV star.
And suddenly there is dating Nadine from Girls Aloud. It was the most extraordinary couples ever. And I mean, something you could never have predicted. It was just a gift to the press. I just think, you know, here was, you know, gorgeous band girl from Northern Ireland with top Hollywood sexy actor. Fantastic.
I mean, Nadine is going to get her heart broken so badly by Jesse Metcalfe. I mean, it's already happened. She moved over to LA to be with him, and then we pictured him out partying with some girls, and then they went back to Jesse's house in the Hollywood Hills. And here the girls emerged looking very dishevelled later, shall we say. Shortly afterwards, the romance split up, but she's had him back.
Entonces, cada una tenía su papel en la prensa sensacionalista. ¿Pero era la tarea de los paparazzi o el juego estratégico de Girls Aloud? Los chismes las estaban llevando a la fama y ayudaban a mejorar su débil situación financiera.
Recently in a club, I was talking to Sarah Harding. That's all they want to do. They want to make money. And, you know, because they haven't made the money that they think they should have made.
When you're a group like Girls Aloud, you're not earning as much as people think because you don't write any of the songs. You're just hired hands. You're not, it's a group, you don't even know the group's name. You're paid to pretend to be a pop star.
The first few years, they weren't making any money whatsoever. You know, they're turning up on top of the pops looking great, but they're going home and having to eat fried eggs on toast every night if they're lucky.
They make their money out of their magazine interviews and their endorsements, out of their records.
As they've grown up, they've been given more freedom. Probably the girls have negotiated this for themselves. They're all intelligent young women, and they realise that they have star power on their own as well as together. So in this way, we can see that, you know, while they do the Sunsilk adverts together, Sarah Harding has got her Ultimo ads on her own.
I think Sarah Harding's made an awful lot of money out of all of Girls Aloud. But I think it's actually Cheryl Cole who would probably, I guess, be paid a bit more purely because she's married to a footballer.
There can be no doubt that whatever these girls wear, the look they have, is something that other people are going to copy. And so clearly the endorsements have followed, and now they are constantly in adverts. They're constantly they're in our faces for a whole bunch of reasons other than the fact that they are, after all, pop singers.
Being on an advert is like having a hit record. You know, being on a huge advert is the same as having a number one single. So for them to get a big advert like Samsung or Gillette, it's a cool thing. You know, it's part of what you do when you're a celebrity.
Pero la única que parece no haberse apoderado de su imagen mediática y haberla usado para su beneficio es Nicola.
Compared to the rest of those beauties, she kind of gets lost in the mix, doesn't she? And I don't think she does much to push herself forward.
I think Nicola has a really tough role to play in the band, firstly because out of all of them, I think the press was least fair on her. And she is just shy. There's no two ways about it. Unlike the others, she has less of a relationship with the press. She does have more of a private life.
She looks fed up, bored, sulky most of the time. And I sometimes think that she must kind of wake up in the morning, see like Cheryl and Sarah plastered all over the tabloids and think, thank God I'm not them.
Mudándose sin esfuerzo al mundo de la publicidad y las revistas, las Girls Aloud, con la ayuda de la prensa, pasaron de ser estrellas de TV a sofisticados emblemas del pop.
They seem to be much more independent now than they were when they first started, and much more into their own things and in control of their careers, which can be only a good role model to any girl.
I think the Girls Aloud market is changing. I think now they're appealing to an older market than probably when they started.
They really have moved on with their fans. They started out as cute, schmaltzy, teeny bop stars on this reality television show, and as they've grown older and as their audience has grown older, they've also moved on. They're now much more suave, much more sophisticated. Girls like them because they're sassy and loud and brash. Little kids love them because their music's quite fun and punky, and boys like them for fairly obvious reasons as well. And the fact that they're not totally unwilling to take their clothes off to a certain extent for magazines like FHM has probably only helped them.
Y con el equipo de producción musical aclamado por las críticas a cargo de sus canciones, las chicas pulieron la técnica para abordar entrevistas y mejoraron su situación con la prensa.
Now they kind of work with the media because they've had to, and they also are all very much aware that the media and the press, attention they've had has helped build their careers and giving them some form of longevity.
They really are all extraordinarily different from one another, especially Cheryl, actually, who is very passionate about whatever she talks about, very outspoken, which is always quite useful because, there's always headlines, no matter what she comes out with, whether it's to do with her and Ashley and his football transferring teams or to do with her fallouts with other stars.
Cheryl talked to me about being bullied and beaten up by an ex-boyfriend. I mean, that was just an amazing story. Kimberly talked about that photograph where she was coming out of a club kind of with her skirt around her head. People thought she was drunk, but she said she'd been given a date rape drug. I mean, all this kind of information that they give you is kind of unheard of, celebrities sort of talking about their private lives like that. And it's just so refreshing.
They were completely unguarded, completely cavalier about the way they answered questions, completely unashamed about the lives they led. And to be honest, there were certain things that the magazine I was writing for would rather not have published.
They're not just talking about girly things anymore, which is what it all started out being. They're talking about real issues. They're talking about drug problems and all the problems that Amy Winehouse is going through at the moment, and they seem to be really genuine in the way that they see themselves now in the media, and they're adults.
Es una señal de que su actitud hacia la prensa maduró, lo cual les dio una plataforma para ser portavoces de la juventud actual.
They are what they are, and what they are is a bunch of girls who represent and reflect what other girls their age in Britain are like,
Whether you like it or not, that's what Britain is like now, is what Girls Aloud kind of reflect.
Con un sinfín de oportunidades para hacerse un futuro más allá de la música, es la hora del éxito o la ruina de Girls Aloud. A continuación, ¿deben separarse estando en la cumbre?
There's such a sort of tight PR machine around them that they can really do no wrong.
¿Y de veras tuvieron una carrera fácil?
They haven't experienced true monstering. And when the tabloid press turns nasty, it can turn extremely nasty indeed.
Con 5 discos, 17 éxitos consecutivos en el Top 10 y una nominación en 2008 para el premio Brit al mejor grupo británico, Girls Aloud está prácticamente irreconocible en comparación con el día en que se presentaron como aspirantes.
Girls Aloud themselves laugh at how they used to look kind of back in the day. They've really changed, they've been groomed to within an inch of their lives now. They're sophisticated beyond belief. They're all kind of, wags or wags in waiting.
They've gone on to being really sophisticated looking with, proper designer staff, biggest stylists in town, and, really a class above other girl bands.
Some of them have become a lot thinner. They're very much more coordinated and slick.
El hecho de que nunca fingieron ser más que 5 chicas inglesas que se deleitan con la fama, ¿fue considerado un buen cambio?
Cheryl's got this kind of weird sideways glance thing, as if she's constantly laughing about the fact that they're even there doing it, which I think, subliminally really appeals to you when you're watching it, because they're all kind of half laughing at the very idea that they're in a pop group and doing this brilliant song.
El trato inteligente con la prensa que ahora define a Girls Aloud es testimonio de la hábil estrategia de relaciones públicas.
One incredible example of this is that recently Girls Aloud all appeared together on GMTV to launch their new single. and on TV they looked fantastic. Their makeup couldn't have been better. But a friend of mine behind the scenes at GMTV told me that the girls got there 2 hours earlier than most of the guests who arrived for makeup, sat in the makeup chair for 2 hours being preened and primped. And you have to think, well, why do 20-year-olds with glowing skin and fantastic figures need that kind of treatment? But that's just a testimony to how incredibly into their image they are and how they like to control what we see of them.
Pero no solo las fotos muestran la travesía de estas chicas. La cobertura mediática también revela mucho.
I think in many ways, Girls Aloud has had a really, really free ride by the media. You know, they're all beautiful and sweet seeming and cute and slim. And I think the media has been very kind to them. I think the fact that they've had something like 17 hits hasn't hurt them any either.
They haven't experienced true monstering. And when the tabloid press turns nasty, it can turn extremely nasty indeed. And I'm not sure whether Cheryl Cole takes the odd jibe about WAG or Sarah Harding takes the odd jibe about, you know, Caner of the Week as real abuse, because actually, look, it's not real abuse, and when tabloids turn against you, it gets very, very nasty, and they would know about it.
The longevity of the girls is really going to depend on how much they're able to feed the media with consistent stories, and as long as they give them stuff to write about, then they will continue to get the column inches and they'll continue to sell records, and Girls Aloud will continue to be one of the most successful girl groups of recent years.
Pudieron haber desaparecido tempranamente, pero lo que parece una estrategia mediática imprevisible y tenaz no parece haberles ayudado a cosechar los frutos.
Early on, I think things could have easily been ruined for Girls Aloud. There was a fair bit of negative press around them, particularly Cheryl. But I think now they've actually managed to really transcend that. The press is no different to kind of Sarah falling out of a nightclub, having had too many drinks. You know, Cheryl's kind of latest antics with Ashley. No, that's about it. I think now there's such a sort of tight PR machine around them that they can really do no wrong.
They've not done anything too shocking apart from Cheryl. They always look great. I think the kids look up to them.
Their head of press is somebody who's been in the game for years and years and has loads of brilliant personal relationships with a lot of the journalists. Just because of that relationship alone, they're always going to be on the winning side of the tabloid newspapers.
Haciendo patria con su historia exitosa en el pop, demostraron que los críticos se equivocaban. Pero con el regreso de las Spice Girls, ¿deberían las Girls Aloud pensar en una despedida exitosa del mundo de la música?
I think it's all over for Girls Aloud. I think it's all over. I think it's finished. They're rinsing out like that wet squeegee the last of Girls Aloud's greatest hits.
I feel that the Spice Girls come back is actually really good news for Girls Aloud because they've not really had any competition. But Girls Aloud will also fancy the fact that long term their album will still be in the charts next spring, where maybe the Spice Girls won't be.
There's definitely going to come a point, isn't there, where Girls Aloud will announce the inevitable split that all girl bands and boy bands go through. Now more and more they're stepping out on their own and becoming famous as individuals, which could be a little hint at their future. Maybe they will split up one day and go their separate ways. Maybe one of them wants to go into acting, one of them wants to have a singing career as a solo artist.
Y si parten mientras el grupo está intacto, ¿podría ser este el momento más oportuno pensando en un futuro reencuentro?
All five of the girls have been quite vociferous about other people, other bands who split up and got back together. I think Cheryl said some great things about the Spice Girls getting back together. And, you know, that's part of her personality. I think it's brilliant. I don't know whether it would be clever for them to bow out gracefully while they're still ahead and get over with that now and then possibly reform in a couple of years' time or whatever, or whether they should just keep going.
No estuvieron adivinando hasta ahora. ¿Seguirán desafiando la marea y mostrando su orgullo por años?
I don't know. From my experience, they all seemed like the best of friends. In fact, they were extremely tactile, you know, kind of affectionate mates, you know. So I thought there was a genuine friendship and a kind of support for each other there. I just think it's a tabloid game, and it keeps us all interested if they keep speculating about maybe the fact they'll split up. Because then you start to wonder, well, who's going to have the successful solo career and all the rest of it.
Bands always split up because one of the members think they're going to be better off on their own than as part of the unit. But it just never works out that way. The unit is always stronger than its individual members, and the fact remains that they're going to be better off together than apart.